Hello, everybody. This is Andrew Kayak. I'm the CEO of SoCal Propane. And what I want to share with you today is a unique opportunity in the alternative energy space as a utility company. Uh, this is something most people are familiar with, is that propane is used typically, your barbecue, that sort of setting. But what people don't realize is the government changes that are happening nationally and, of course, internationally as well, and what that means for this space. Propane is a byproduct of oil or petroleum and also natural gas. Those two ways that this is produced in the marketplace. And what's unique about it is that it doesn't go bad like diesel or gasoline, and it also doesn't have to be compressed, liquefied like natural gas. It can just be transported the way that it is, and it stays good for decades on its own, which makes it a superior energy product. And secondly, it also has very, very low carbon footprint, just right around natural gas. So it's competitive in that space. So as we see federal dollars or state dollars or energy uses change over to clean energy, this is one of those applications that is just ultimately key. And it's very inexpensive compared to, as you can imagine, a gallon of diesel at $4+ in many states. Right now, propane is right around $1 a gallon, so huge difference. And so we talk about this. Um, we're used to seeing this across the Midwest, the Northeast, and of course up in the Sierras and the mountains or rural areas, being the energy product to heat homes, water heaters, dishwashers, ovens, you name it, it's the energy use that's out there as a utility and people have to have and use. And what people don't realize is that what we're now seeing it go into is many different applications out there. Like for instance, in the state of California, there are actually rebates for construction companies, for farmers, for restaurants to shift away from whatever fuel source they're using and to go to propane for their energy needs, whether it's a landscaper or construction worker. They have school bus rebates. They also have fleet rebates as well in California, $5,000 a vehicle. And nationally, they are starting to put these same rebates out through the EPA. Farming for a long time has been a big user of propane. As you can imagine, in the Midwest, when they dry the corn after it's rained and they picked it or harvested it, is something that's utilized across the space, or to operate generators or wind farms, backup power sources out there. In addition, what we're seeing here in many ports, outside those ports are distribution centers that move and transload goods across the U.S. or back out as exports. In all of these warehouses, they've shifted to propane as the primary source instead of diesel or gasoline or even battery power for its reliability and how inexpensive it is to implement. One of the areas that we've really targeted is how do we control the U.S. market, impact of that market, but also how do we prepare for international markets as well. And one of the key things that we're seeing is every island out there or coastal area heavily uses propane. One, for of course, all their heaters that they have, but the tiki torches, like for instance in Hawaii, I just got back from there, one of our areas of expansion. Every resort literally has 30,000 to 60,000 gallons of storage. And these huge resorts, Marriott, Westin, you name it, are operating off propane. Those tiki torches, those are burning propane. The fire pits that they're doing, that's propane. When you think about it, people don't realize that sort of usage is out there. Right now, we are seeing contracts by major transit agencies to shift over to propane for their buses. The most recent one has been San Diego Metro Transit, which operates over 100+ buses throughout San Diego to move people. Those are all shifted to propane. The same thing in Orange County, and we're seeing this across the U.S. We're seeing it with school districts as well as the reliability and the usage of these vehicles go. And they can take basically a gasoline engine, convert it to propane without really too much of an expense, but of course all of a sudden drop their fuel costs and also get these rebates that are out there. Most of you are familiar with generators and the backup power supply. One of the big things that we really were able to take advantage of is during fire season or when we have these hurricanes that take down areas, is what powers all those generators in these areas. When Edison or the power grid is down, it's propane. It's a superior product. You don't have to worry about your diesel rotting the generator or in storage there. Propane is the fuel of choice in these areas. We've been the preferred vendor here in Southern California with our fires and CAL FIRE to get up behind the scenes and provide backup power to many regions during that time frame. If you know anything about the national competition, which of course is how do we penetrate the market, we have been able to do so, and really the catalyst behind this is that the big national guys like AmeriGas here highlighted in this article basically did a $3 billion buyout roughly 5 years ago, and their reorganization to make profits, return profits to stockholders, left them bare and not able to handle the supply or the needs of the customers that are out there. And what I highlighted here is a comment or a quote by one of the AmeriGas officials basically saying, until we have added resources, we can't service the area as responsibly as we would like. And to hear that come out of a national corporation shows how weak their barrier to entry is and how we've been really been able to feed off this and penetrate the marketplace based on their weakness of their business model. So as you talked about kind of our structure, our business plan was built around, okay, how do we structure here in California tied to the national goods movement corridors, which Union Pacific and BNSF move from the ports of LA and Long Beach, which move 40% of the U.S. goods in and out. And on those two rail corridors, they feed the rest of the U.S. And of course, they ship out to the rest of the world as well. And our location is key to obviously be able to control that market and move supply with what we're going to describe here as our business plan. But I think it's very important to note that it wasn't until 2012 that we were able to export out of the U.S. Propane. It wasn't allowed prior to that. And as you can see, we're in Pad 5, the yellow area, and that little arrow at the bottom that points to Asia. Asia consumes 38% of the U.S. propane produced, enormous amount. And of course, it goes down. You can see we also provide down in South America, Costa Rica, those ports down there as well that are all on propane, those nations. And so our position is, how do we benefit from all this, right? How do we position, how do we grow this company, this marketplace, a utility company, but also alternative energy, and what this means to your clients, and why now? Why is this such an important investment right now? The opportunity that we have now is basically the second level of investments. We had the initial investors come in and start the company. We're an operating company today. We're right around 1 million gallons that we are selling. We've had a growth right around 50% year over year. And our business plan is really initially 3 phases, which we are getting ready to really close up and wrap up over the next year and a half. The first phase was, let's do bulk storage. And the whole idea about this is propane isn't like gasoline. The prices swing from summer to winter 300% to us and to our customers. It's all moved by rail from the refineries from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, and it's shipped to the east and shipped to the west on rail. There are some small pipelines in some areas, but mainly by rail. And the price movement during the summer, because people aren't using it to heat or dry crops or do these things with, there is an oversupply, and people build storage, but there's more supply than demand. And in wintertime, as you can imagine, when there's snow and ice and all these things happening, the demand greatly outweighs supply, which is why there's a 300% movement from summer prices to winter prices. And the model that we've looked at of successful companies across the U.S. is to have bulk storage, where in the summertime you can purchase and store for the winter and lock in that 300% profit margin and return it to obviously investors and use it to obviously penetrate additional markets. So our first phase one was to be able to do that. And in addition to that, one of the key elements isn't just the supply, the margin swing, but it's also to secure supply. Many times there's a train derailment. There's a refinery that has problems or needs maintenance or shut down. There's ice. There's something that stops the rail from connecting to different areas, and that creates a emergency need in areas where there's a lack and a shortage of supply, especially during the winter months, which drives prices up even higher and also limits how you can provide service to your customers. So as you can imagine, securing supply in addition to margin, it's a twofold benefit that we see with that phase one. Phase two is to expand the marketplace, which is kind of our main footprint is to go along the Sierra Nevadas in California. They have rail and truck corridors up Central California, Northern California, of course, into Southern, and then we have the ports to ship off to Hawaii. And so our expansion here is how do we, when will we expand into these areas? Well, that's phase two, right? We have the bulk storage. It's now let's penetrate the markets. We can control supply. And besides our local location in Southern California, let's go to the tip of Mexico in San Diego and then start penetrating up north and positioning for phase three and the international positions. And so the phase three portion of that is a rail terminal with 1 billion gallons. And this allows us to start off the main line, bringing in propane at even a lower price than bulk during the summer, another drop of roughly about 40% discount, and being able to move it to wherever we want, bring it in, bring it out, and also sell wholesale. So it allows us to also start supplying to other providers if there's a shortage or they'd just like to purchase from us. And that's one of the unique things that we found is most companies don't understand the environmental restrictions to build a hazmat location or something that stores fuel like propane, and also through the development code of when and where in California and where the rail companies will allow you to do that. That's an asset and benefit we have. I'm chairman of Southern California Regional Rail Authority. I'm also an elected official, dealt with developers and planning and code for many years. And so we've been able to penetrate in areas where the big boys have tried, they bought properties, they developed it, and either the rail company won't put a spur in, or the neighbor next door would not allow an easement from their property onto their property because they didn't plan appropriately, and now have a sunk cost that they can't recoup into these properties. In Riverside County, there is no existing terminal. We would be the first one, and we are well on our way to do that. To give an overview of the bulk storage is roughly what it looks like. There's 30,000 gallon tanks. There's 12. Basically, there's 6 bays that is allowed in the codes. That's why they're separated, and you have an island in the middle to offload and load smaller trucks and fill them with larger trucks. This is our conditions of approval. So it's an approved project that we're obviously in the middle of right now. And these are just some images of that project moving forward. So our concrete saddles were just poured, 3,000 PSI. The saddles have to cure for 30 days, which we're in the middle of right now. In the background, you can see the 12 30,000 gallon tanks that are waiting to be deployed and installed at this location. This overview is standing on the pad with the islands going in. You can see all the wooding that was constructed for pouring the saddles has now been taken off and waiting to be hauled away. They will be mounted side by side, and at the end, they will be painted white. They'll be connected and ready to fill. So we're looking to wrap that up in the next 60 days, and this is one of the first steps and completions we're going to be seeing in the next 18 months. We're going to have several of these first 3 steps cleared and finished, which really tees us up for the discussion of what after that, and what does this mean for investors, and how do they exit as well. This is a view of a rail spur in Indio, California, which you're familiar with. The Coachella Festival goes there. It's worldwide and known. They have a polo field. And this spur is now leased to SoCal Propane from Union Pacific. It's a 710-foot track lease. This is a lease agreement solidified and actuated with UP, a good partner with us. They are doing improvements on that rail spur right now. And once they're completed, they'll turn it over to us, and we will begin to temporarily bring in propane at this location till the purchase and construction of the permanent rail facility with 1 million gallons. So this is a great way for us, very low cost, to enter into the wholesale market and start railing propane in this year without a lot of overhead cost of construction. Our 3-year revenue projection is right here. Following the expansion, we're looking at about a little over $5 million a year. Right now, our gross is over $2 million that we are currently. So we're already starting to hit these numbers without these projects even being in completion, which is a very positive sign for investors, the recurring revenue. And it really tees us up for what comes after this phase, because we're ripping through phase 1, 2, and 3 fairly quickly here. And what we're positioning for is to actually go out and do a bonding, roughly over $100 million. In that, it will be an expansion and positioning to acquire other smaller propane companies that already have business and already have clientele along our transportation corridors that we're going to be logistically be able to control in up and down California and into Hawaii. And this will also be able to position us roughly within a 3 to 5 year time frame, being able to position the company to be attracted to going public and or being bought off by one of the larger companies because of the benefits that we hold and the storage we have and the clientele and the gallons that we control as well. And that typically positions us for a multiple in just over double digits. The public companies trade at 12 to 15 times earnings. Right now, this offering, today your investors can enter this offering at a 5 times multiple and be positioned for large upside in the near future as we move forward with obviously completing this project and moving into really accelerating our growth and expansion. Our application of dollars is listed here as far as what equipment we're purchasing, what debt we're paying down. 9.5 is going to, of course, the rail operations. We have a satellite operation of $450,000. Operational expense, which is roughly about 10% of the offering, listed there. And then, of course, the commissions are built in below. That's a part of what we have to disclose, of course, in our PPM to investors. There I am, a little bit about myself, that I've been in the investment world for well over 2 decades. Graduate of Wharton. As I said, I'm an elected official, chairman of Southern California Regional Rail Authority. Very well positioned. Chief Operating Officer is Amanda, and our Chief Service Officer is Frank. We have several other people that are part of this, but these are the main people that operate and have expertise combined. We roughly have 60 years of experience in this space and ready to deliver to your clients and grow this company.